Good evening and welcome to my channel. Tonight, I'm going to be doing something a little different, and I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, because I have a lot of thoughts. So first of all, I hated this book. And this might partly be due to my expectations going into the book. So Wuthering Heights is referenced in pop culture sometimes. And the one that comes to mind the most is an episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And I just remember Aunt Zelda telling Sabrina that, oh, you need to read Wuthering Heights for yourself in order to experience the love of Catherine and Heathcliff. So I went into this book thinking that this was going to be a great love story. I expected it to be a tragedy, but I was thinking something more along the lines of Romeo and Juliet. And that is not what this was at all. So I think that's part of what made me hate this book. But let's get into the book itself. So let's talk about the structure of the book. Now, I can't talk about sentence structure or anything like that. My own writing is atrocious. But what I do want to talk about is the idea of choosing to tell the story through Nellie Dean, who is the maid / childhood friend of Heathcliff and Catherine, right? And I don't really get the point of this. Like, the whole character of Mr. Lockwood, I am just like, why? Why is he here? This seems unnecessary. That this whole story is just being told by Nellie Dean to Mr. Lockwood. And it just seems unnecessary. I feel like it just could have been told, right? So let's talk about the characters. All the characters are horrible. Like, there was not a single character in this entire book that I was rooting for, because they don't have any redeeming qualities. They all seem very selfish and kind of vile. Like, there's just nothing good about any of them. And especially Heathcliff. Like, that was probably one of the bigger shocks. I also went into this book expecting Heathcliff to be the hero. So it was a bit of a shock to realize that, no, Heathcliff is the villain of this book. Like, he is absolutely horrendous. So that was a shock for me. But even Catherine is very bratty and selfish and kind of doesn't think of anybody but herself. And they're both just terrible. And even all the other characters around this story, even the children like Linton and Kathy, and even to a certain extent, Nellie Dean, they all just seem bad. Like, I don't see any good things in these characters. So, the moment I knew Heathcliff was evil was when he married Isabella, all in an attempt to control Edgar, who had married Catherine, right? And this was just like the epitome of something a villain would do. That, like, you are really going to marry someone with the sole intent of using this person to control somebody else. Like, this is vile. Like, honestly, I was just flabbergasted by this whole thing. I hated it so much. And I mean, Isabella also was like kind of bratty and everything. She had been warned against Heathcliff and she did it anyway. And I don't know how anyone could marry somebody after treating her dog the way he did. So a little bit on Isabella, but mostly Heathcliff. Like, that was just vile. Catherine's death really surprised me. I was expecting Catherine to have some tragic death on the moor. I expected her to get lost at some point, not be able to get home, and die out on the moor. So I was very surprised that she actually died in childbirth. And the fact that she was even pregnant was a surprise to me in the story because it's not mentioned anywhere before she dies. I even went back and like started rereading some of the chapters. I was like, did I miss something? I don't remember it ever talking about Catherine being pregnant or expecting or increasing was a common term to use in that time period. And I couldn't find anything. And so I'm just like, this was a surprise. I did not know she was pregnant. And then she just dies giving birth. And not what I was expecting. But there you have it. Obviously, we knew Catherine died young from the very beginning. It's alluded to, her death. So we expected that. I just expected her to die in some sort of like tragic accident or something. So let's talk about Kathy and Linton. This was a very interesting relationship. And I did not understand Kathy. Kathy is, of course, Catherine's daughter. There's a point in the book where she even says that she doesn't really enjoy spending time with Linton, but yet she continues to go. This seems very odd to me because if I am not enjoying somebody's company, if I am not having fun, if I'm not just having a good time, I don't spend time with them anymore. So it was very weird that she would say that and then continue to spend time with him and even profess to love him when how can you love someone that you don't even enjoy spending time with them? And Linton was just a brat. I could not stand him. He was not as bad as Heathcliff, but also bad. I mean, he did trick Kathy, into marrying him. Or not really trick, but coerced, I guess. Either way, it's bad. Like, why would you do that to somebody who, again, you also profess to love? Which kind of brings me to the point, are any of these relationships love? And I don't think they are. Because Catherine and Heathcliff, that might be more obsession than love. I mean, Heathcliff even, after Catherine dies, he's like, he doesn't want Catherine to be at peace, right? That he's very upset about her death, and even insists on the ghost of Catherine haunting him, which is weird. Because if you love someone, you would want them to be at peace. You wouldn't want them to be continually suffering. So this is a very odd concept for somebody you're supposed to love. And even Catherine, did Catherine really love Heathcliff? Undecided. I'm not sure why you would marry Edgar if you loved Heathcliff. And I know she said that it was in order to better Heathcliff, but that still seems weird. And it's also kind of a terrible thing to do to Edgar, because Edgar, I do think if he did not love Catherine, he at least had affection for her and cared for her very deeply. And so it was kind of a terrible thing to do to Edgar, to marry him while still loving Heathcliff, and all of this being for Heathcliff's benefit, supposedly. It's very odd. I'm not sure why you would do that. And then, Heathcliff is just obsessed with Catherine. Even after her death for years, it's all about getting back at Edgar, who married Catherine. And it's very strange. And then what is the point of this story? Because we get to the end and everybody's dead. Catherine is dead, Edgar is dead, Heathcliff is dead. What was the point? Why does this story exist? I'm a little confused. I did not really get this story. Maybe somebody else can explain it better to me. If you have like read this story and you thought it was amazing, please let me know what I'm missing, because to me, this was terrible. The characters are terrible. The storyline is terrible. I really just kind of like hated everything about this book. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Wuthering Heights. Do let me know what you thought of this story. If you haven't listened to my audio version of it, you can. I don't really recommend it. I thought it was a horrible book. There are many others on my channel that I would recommend over Wuthering Heights, but check it out if you don't know what I'm talking about with how horrible all these characters are. Anyway, that's it for me. Until next time.